BBC World News America and the Nightly Business Report will not be shown tonight, so we can bring you this special presentation.
At Kids Peace, our mission is to give hope, help, and healing to children, adults, and those who love them. Kids Peace is a proud supporter of PBS 39.
Live from the PPL Public Media Center, PBS 39 in partnership with Kids Peace presents a community conversation on school safety.
Good evening and welcome to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Tracy Yatzko. In the wake of the tragic February 14th shooting deaths of 17 Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School students and staff, our nation has yet again found itself wrestling with issues surrounding school safety, gun laws, and mental health. The greater Lehigh Valley is not immune to these debates, which is why we at PBS 39 felt it important to host this community conversation. I am honored to be joined on set by an impressive group of local high school students. Let's meet them. Edwin Chalice, a junior at William Allen. Alyssa Lahovich, a junior at Deeruff. Mackenzie Kirchner, a sophomore at Parkland. Jalen Perkins, a sophomore at Deeruff. Paige Kaczynski, a junior at East Stroudsburg South. Jerome Waugh, a senior at Whitehall. Siobhan Smith, a sophomore at Deeruff. And Georgia Scusa, a junior at Liberty. Thank you for joining us. Throughout the broadcast, we'll be joined by local school superintendents, a deputy police chief, a childhood trauma expert, a local activist, and local politicians. Our expectation is that they will answer questions from our students, from our audiences in both of our studios, and from those of you watching at home via social media. Let's meet our first group of local experts and get started. I would like to introduce three local superintendents, Thomas Parker from Allentown, Joseph Roy from Bethlehem, and Rich Snizak from Parkland. We are also joined by Beth Tomlinson, Director of Education for the United Way of the Greater Lehigh Valley. Thank you all for joining us. First, to get us started, raise your hand if you're currently a high school student. Okay, so not too many. Who wants to tell us what it's like being a high school student? Alyssa?
Hi, being a student at Deeruff High School it can either be fun or it could be challenging, and either like whatever you look at it. There are like, I don't even know.
Do you witness fights? Is there
all
bullying?
the time?
What are the pressures of a high school student?
There's always fights in the hallways. There's some, I think there was like one in the locker room last night or something. And it's just, it needs to be safer in all aspects of just going to school and just getting an education, basically.
And Paige, what's it like at Parkland?
I actually go to East Stroudsburg South.
Oh, darn it. East Stroudsburg South, tell us about that.
Just this year, there's been numerous fights. There's been other things like illegal things happening at school. Our teachers have doors that are broken. They don't close all the way.
Okay.
A couple teachers keep them open on purpose. There was one fight where me and my friend almost got caught in the crossfires. I don't feel safe in my school. I feel like there needs to be something to make it better.
Okay, and Edwin.
So fights are, I guess you could say they're common. One occasion, I think 3 weeks ago, I was walking from a class to another class, and there was a fight going on in the middle of the hallway. I think that's just the consequence of having, high schoolers usually have really high emotional things going on, and sometimes they don't know how to express it well, so they resort to violence or bullying or other things. And I think besides adding more safety, we need to talk to the students more and get them more prepared to deal with their issues in a non-violent and non-threatening way.
Thank you. So I actually want to bring in Beth here. Now you're an expert on childhood trauma. Fighting, acting out, are there connections to childhood trauma?
Definitely.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
Sure. So childhood trauma, just so we're all speaking with the same language, is really kids experiencing violence or chaos or neglect at home. So that's physical abuse and neglect, emotional abuse and neglect, sexual abuse, having a parent or caregiver that has a mental health issue, that abuses drugs or alcohol, that's being beaten at home, particularly a mother that's being physically abused at home, or having an incarcerated parent, or divorce or separation where a child experiences that loss. Those combinations of experiences, or even just one of those experiences, is what we talk about when we talk about childhood trauma. And when kids are experiencing that, particularly at a young age, when the brain is developing, it literally affects how the brain develops. All right, for healthy brain develop, a child really needs to be nurtured, right, and supported for all those connections in your brain to be happening. And when there's chaos, dysfunction, or abuse and distress, right, those healthy connections aren't being made. And what it ends up creating in the child, and you see it through the school system, kids end up getting stuck in kind of a survivor brain. So when you think about it this way, you're walking in the woods with your friends, and you see a big bear, right? What are you going to do? Right? You run, right. So that's that fight, flight, or freeze response. Your heart's racing, right? And your muscles tighten, right? That is your brain sensing danger and then triggering that survivor mode, right? So your heartbeat's racing, so more oxygen goes to your muscles, adrenaline's coursing in your body so you can be quicker and faster, hormones are going to your muscles, right? So that your muscles are stronger so you can fight or run faster, right? Or hide really quietly. So that's how our brains are wired. We're just hardwired for that. It's not even a conscious choice, right? We see danger, we react in that way. And literally the critical thinking part of our brain comes offline, right? That reasoning, impulse control, that part of our brain comes offline when that survival mode kicks in. Mm-hmm. The difference with a childhood trauma situation is what happens when that bear lives with you, right? Then that danger is there all the time. And what that does to a developing brain is it kind of sets us for that trauma response, that survivor response all the time. Mm-hmm. So what that means in the brain, literally, the cognition part of the brain is changing. And it actually creates an alarm system, a danger alarm system that's wired all the time. So particularly like your examples of the fights, right? A kid that's had that kind of experience, someone just getting too close to them in the hallway, right? A lot of it is the hallway, right? What's happening in the hallways are loud and noisy. Kids sometimes are bumping up, not even intentionally, right? I love this guy. So he's gonna get a lot of elbows tonight, right? But that contact, now if I've had that kind of experience, right, where I always had to be prepared to defend myself, just that alone, now survival mode kicks in, and that impulse control and critical thinking and reasoning, and even the verbal communication, because our vocabulary goes offline too. And so I literally in that moment can't process, and I fight.
And that's very important to keep in mind with this discussion. And you are spearheading a local effort to address trauma. Can you quickly speak on that?
Sure. And through our partnerships with Bethlehem and Allentown school districts, and Easton as well, and Bangor, we've been working very closely with our school districts for about 15 years now. And through that, we've seen some of the behavior issues with our schools. And we've seen, and I think all of our school districts would say it as well, mental health is the biggest issue. And school districts are seeing more and more mental health needs, so rising rates of it at younger and younger ages. So through that experience and our relationship with the school districts, we realized childhood trauma really is that root. It's the root for a lot of the behavior we see in schools. It's why our kids are acting the way they do and responding the way they do, and it makes a lot of sense, right, from that trauma lens. And the need to be trauma informed. So we have been working with our districts to support trauma sensitive schools, so training all of our school staff on what the signs and symptoms of childhood trauma, the brain science behind it, and how to act in a trauma-informed way, how to create a trauma-informed classroom, how to look at your hallways and how our kids are interacting in the hallways, auditorium, different classes, bus, all of that differently. So we're leading an effort to support trauma-sensitive schools, and Bethlehem and Allentown and Easton are part of that pilot. And we're also looking at a community lens, right? Because trauma, right, and what our kids need, schools can help with some of that, but our community has a larger responsibility too. Schools really can't do it alone. They just don't have the resources. Right. So we're supporting trauma-sensitive schools, and then we're also galvanizing support around the community, and we have some of our community partners with that collaborative here to really look at the community level. How as a community can we come together to help build resilient kids and families?
And to our superintendents, what are you currently doing in your districts to address problems like this?
So I'll begin. So with the Allentown School District, the tragedy in Parkland, Florida, it really kind of sparked the administrators as well as the students to engage in some higher level conversations about school safety. Re-engaging the voice of our students in our community has absolutely been critical. 2 weeks ago, we held a community forum that was an open forum for all students, staff, parents, just to come in and have some larger conversations around student and school safety and community safety so that we can identify ways that we can work together to address those concerns. We've also engaged on multiple occasions our teacher voice and our student voice because this is absolutely something that can't be solved, in the superintendent's office. It takes a collective effort to have the type of impact necessary to be effective. But in the meantime, some of the intermediate steps have been reviewing safety plans and procedures at each school, ensuring that we have drills that are necessary so the students are capable and able to address safety concerns if something were to arise. In Allentown School District, we previously did not have an anonymous tip line. One of the pieces of information that I've received from students is that there's the apprehension to tell or to snitch if there's a safety concern with a fellow student. So creating safe spaces for students to share those concerns without the fear of retribution. So just a number of things that we're looking at doing, but the largest one of which is continuing to engage the voices of our students in our community in ongoing conversations about safety.
And I want to get some quick questions in from our students. Jerome, you have a question for the panel? The mic.
Yeah, for superintendents, what's your view on having metal detectors placed in like all schools around the U.S.?
I'll start with that one. I don't think that's an effective solution. I think that's a solution that might make people feel good, but it wouldn't really be safe. If you think of facilities that have metal detectors and use metal detectors like a courthouse, you use them 100% of the time that the building's in use. And you funnel people through one or two entrances. At schools, particularly high schools, there are, first of all, everybody arrives at the same time, and that's a challenge. But high schools are used, and middle schools, many in elementaries as well, for evening activities, community activities, musical practice, sports practices at night. So unless you use the metal detectors 100% of the time, basketball games, for everything, they lose their effectiveness. And in the case of an active shooter, my belief is an active shooter is not going to be stopped by a metal detector. If they're coming in to do damage, they'll just do damage at the metal detector spot and then move on from there. So I really believe it's a false sense of security.
And would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd piggyback on what Joe said, but in just using Parkland High School for an example, and Mackenzie can attest to this, that we use 3 entrances in the morning. We have 3,200 kids converging on the school at one time. It would surely take a long period of time for all those students to access through a metal detector and have school in a sensible time frame. So I do think it would provide a false sense of security to that, but it would also provide many logistical problems for school.
Okay. And speaking of Mackenzie, I believe you have a question for Beth?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have a question, and it is, how can you cope with the fear of going to school every day after hearing about, or even, for example, the Parkland kids living through tragedies like school shootings?
That's a great question. And I know a lot of our schools, when a tragedy happens, even if it's a student death or incidents like that, they bring in emergency teams of counselors to talk. And that's usually more in the short term. That sense of safety can last longer than a week or two, right? That can last for quite a while, especially if you knew somebody, right, that was involved. So I would say one thing we're really advocating on the trauma-sensitive school side is school-based mental health centers. So really having dedicated behavioral health counselors full-time in every school. So when events happen, yes, there's people on site, but for every day, for any student that's facing any kind of emotional struggle, right, there's someone that they can go to that has the expertise. Not all of our school counselors, for example, are really trained in behavioral health, right? So it's a kind of a different kind of role than an actual behavioral health counselor. So one thing we're really advocating with United Way in partnership with our Lehigh Valley Trauma Awareness Collaborative, and I know our districts want it, is really having dedicated qualified behavioral health experts on site. Another issue with some of that is kids really feeling comfortable to access. There's a little bit of a mental health stigma. So we're actually right now also, interestingly enough, in partnership with PBS, so another shout out for PBS, working on a destigmatization campaign around mental health issues so people feel comfortable asking for help. And then the last thing I would say is part of it goes to also school culture and climate. You know, is the school culture and climate okay to say, hey, I'm not okay? Right? Because what we know about trauma is really about how you as an individual experience it, and how you experience it is going to be different than how you, right? Someone might experience something, and like, all right, I'm okay, I understand it, I'm good. And the other person may have months of recurring nightmares, anxiety, panic attacks, right, to the same event. So trauma is very individualized. So having a school climate culture where there's resources on hand, and also where really talking about social emotional, talking about wellness, talking about brain health is really part of the school culture where there's no stigma to ask for help.
And you said mental health stigma, and let's just quickly talk about this. Anytime there is a mass shooting, automatically mental health. How is that stigma harmful to what mental health truly is?
Right. So unfortunately in this country, mental health really is stigmatized. I mean, you can talk about any physical health issue in pretty much any community setting, and no one thinks twice about it. But when we talk about mental health, all of a sudden people feel you're going to judge me, you're not going to hang out with me. It's a sign of weakness. Like there's still really this cultural thread in our society that just pull up your britches, suck it up, you're fine, pull through, which is very unfortunate and unhealthy. And certainly, I don't think adults in this country are modeling it for you kids either. So I do think there's a quick jump to mental health, mental illness as an excuse. Sometimes it really isn't mental illness. It really is exposure to childhood trauma and the results of that.
And access too, right?
Yeah.
You know, Beth talked earlier. It's very important that the schools provide the access to mental health services to children, and it has to be at school because they're less likely to go once they go home and have their parents take them. We need to bridge that gap through the services at school.
And I see them all nodding. I think you would all agree that it needs to be at school. Yeah.
The challenge is finding the resources. And schools don't necessarily need to provide the resources. There are community partners and resources partners, but they are short on resources as well. And so right now the demand for services outpaces the supply by far. And so in schools, there's a frustration that you'd be working with a student and identify needs, and the student wants to access services, the parents want to access services, but there's a wait for those services.
Or there's a health care issue where they can't
insurance
pay.
Gets in the way,
exactly.
Right. And then that's often a stopper, depending on insurance. So there's, the lack of resources combined with some obstacles that families have to overcome from the school's perspective is a great frustration from the time you get the family to the point where, we want to access help, to the point where they actually can access help can take months sometimes.
Yeah.
And if I could just add to that, I think one of the other pieces, and it's a larger frame of conversation, but in education, we focus a lot on academic outcomes, and sometimes that focus can reduce the amount of time and energy we put on identifying challenges with our children socially and emotionally. So creating the space and expectation at schools that while we're focusing on the academic outcomes, we have to really place a lot of energy into our work on the emotional and social elements that help kids develop is another critical piece.
I would just add one thing, and more for you guys to remember this issue, because you have some legislators coming in, the third panel. This would be a great question for them too. How do we get more school-based mental health services?
There you go. Okay, I think we have a few more questions. Paige?
Okay, so on the topic of like mental health and being like concerned and trying to do more, and on the topic of like safety, I know that now we are, in my school, are told to stay in place until, like during fire drills, until the principal tells us we can come out or they have like someone come up to the door. And I'm more so worried that we're so used to being like in our ways. Is there any way that like we've been conditioned to walk out when we hear the fire alarms and changing this could be more catastrophic than helpful?
Yeah, it's a good point. We had a lot of discussion on this earlier in the week in Parkland specifically, and we do in light of these school shootings where, and I believe there's been 5 nationally now where an alarm's been pulled so that the shooter can access more victims. And I think we have to be smarter than that. I think it's okay to drill and make announced drills so that the students know and the staff know. But if there's an unannounced alarm, I think we got to be a little more precautious now. And you know, obviously, if someone pulls an alarm and it's unannounced because there's a fire, the people in those areas, they're going to know there's a fire. They're going to leave. You know, common sense will prevail. But in a big building, you could be on the other side of the building and not know what's going on. And that's what happened on the 14th of February. And people became victims of doing what we've conditioned them to do for many years. You hear the bell, fire alarm, you're going to leave, you're going to exit. Right now, you know, we changed in Parkland. We're going to make unannounced fire alarms. We're going to tell our staff to stay in place until an announcement's made.
Okay, and Alyssa, you have a question?
Back to the kids with the trauma and stuff. I think that, and especially in DRF, the teachers pay more attention to the kids with better test scores and the ones that are in the honor classes and stuff like that. Is there like, I don't even know, like, hold on, sorry. Is there, is there possible to get more help in the schools with the students with lower test scores? Because I feel like what I've been like reading up on, it's a lot of kids who don't get help from schools and from teachers. They're like a bunch of like nobodies. And I feel like the smart kids are people who all the teachers know. And I feel like nobody should feel like a nobody at school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of respond to that and say, so that sentiment is one that's been echoed. And it's really about relationships. The students that, so when we talk about safety in ASD, and even in the conversations I've had at DIF, we talked about safety in 2 buckets. Bucket 1 being like the physical, strong safety elements, whether there's doors or security guards, all those things. But then there's also social and emotional safety. And every kid in every school has the right to feel safe. That means connected to a caring adult in the building that will be an ear for them if there's a concern. And some students have that, and some students honestly don't. So we have to identify ways that we can work with students who don't have that caring adult that they trust in the building to be an ear. A lot of conversations that we've been having have centered around ensuring that we have some extra resources so that we can supplement counseling services and have more counselors in our schools, which I think is a great idea, something that our students talk about quite a bit. How do we ensure that A, those teacher relationships are really strong, and then B, those counseling relationships that supplement the teaching relationships are strong enough to catch a kid that may not be caught in that initial relationship with the teacher.
Okay. And I want to thank you all for those questions. And I want to thank our panelists. When we return, our conversation will continue with a member of the Bethlehem Police Department and a representative of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America.
There's a lot of really great literacy activities being held here tonight. Parents are able to read books with their children. They're able to learn some literacy strategies that they're able to use with their kids when they leave here.
CAI Learning Academy is a private nonprofit elementary school in Allentown. It is our mission to really provide a solid academic foundation for our students.
Tonight is Family Fun Night. We're doing reading with PBS, and there's different areas for the family and children to go to.
The goal of these nights is to not just engage the students and teach them something, but to engage our families. This really has a positive effect. It makes them want to come to school.
Children get to make bookmarks for their books, as well as they receive free books, so that's awesome. Thank you, PBS 39. You guys did awesome. We were so happy to meet every single one of you guys.
Thank you, PBS 39, for this wonderful evening.
Get involved in your community by supporting PBS 39 today.
Welcome back to the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39. I'm Tracy Yatzko. We'll continue our conversation with Bethlehem Township Deputy Chief Todd Repsher and Mary Ann Nord from Lehigh Valley Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. You will notice that one of our chairs is empty. We believe that in any good conversation, it is important to have all parties represented. While we invited the National Rifle Association to attend, they chose not to participate, but we do not want to forget that they too have a role to play and have left their seat empty as a visual reminder. Thank you both for joining us. So, Mary Ann, many people here and at home may not be aware of your organization. Can you tell us what it's about?
Sure. The organization was founded in the wake of Sandy Hook by a mom in Indiana who started a Facebook page, and in the 5 years ensuing, it's become the largest gun violence prevention organization in the country. We have chapters in every state. We have multiple teams in many of the larger states. And we advocate for common sense reform. So, we are not anti-Second Amendment. We advocate for really common sense measures that are designed to keep people safe and keep our communities safe. So things like universal background checks that have 97% consensus on Americans believe we should have universal background checks. And many of these things really are central to not just protecting kids in schools and our communities, but helping our law enforcement and keeping them safe as well.
Okay, and let's take some questions from our students. Siobhan has a question for our Deputy Chief.
Hello, my question towards you is, is there any way that a student can file a report without feeling the fear of being considered a snitch or being disfranchised? Like, is there a way that students can file a report that could save lives and go unnoticed?
Yes, absolutely. In all of our schools, our middle schools and our high schools, we have school resource officers that have a fantastic working relationship with the student body. And there have been numerous issues where reports have been made to those school resource officers and anonymity is kept because these police officers that are in the school understand what you are dealing with day to day. So yeah, absolutely, that can be done.
And Edwin, I believe you have a question.
All right, so this question is for whichever one of you wants to answer. Do either of you worry about considering proposals to arm teachers or have other elements of safety in schools? Do you worry that the presence of these things, what effect that might have on the students and how they act?
With regard to arming of teachers, I understand that's a hot button topic presently. While I don't have a say in whether that happens or not, I was a SWAT officer for 19 years. So I know that if I would have to go into a situation where there is another person that is armed, that's just something else that I am going to have to, and my officers are going to have to contend with, in addition to dealing with what is presently going on. I think it would make our job a little bit more difficult. That being said, if something like that were to happen, it would behoove our departments to get on board and train with these people so we know them and we recognize them.
And Mary Ann, as a mom and having children, do you feel safe knowing that their teachers are armed? What's your stance on that?
So, right now in Pennsylvania, it's not, the law does not allow for the arming of teachers, but that is under consideration in the legislature right now. And I think your question really spoke to the effect on students and how you would be affected. And I think that's often lost in the conversation, right? Because there are a lot of sound bites that get thrown around, and there's a lot of, misinformation. But I really think that's important, because when students are in school, and especially on the heels of the conversation that just took place about, trauma and students who have been affected by trauma, when you're in an environment where your teachers, may be carrying weapons, there are certain people, I think, that just leap to the conclusion that that's going to create a safer environment or a safer feeling. But I think that you're shaking your heads, right? You don't know if your teacher has a gun, if something escalates quickly in a hallway, or all the fights that you were talking about. Imagine introducing a gun into that scenario when things are very volatile, they happen quickly, people are making split-second decisions. It happens all the time. We see it over and over again. There's not a study out there that most people that own weapons for protection in the home do it because they feel it'll make them safer. But every single study shows that it increases risk for everybody in the home, for homicide, suicide, and accidental shooting. And so there's no reason to think that that wouldn't translate over to schools. So I think it just creates, students are dealing with so much fear and anxiety right now. My daughter is 13, and she's afraid every night. She says, I'm scared. We had a threat at our school the morning that Parkland happened. So there's high levels of anxiety, and I just think that that's an important piece of the conversation.
Let's actually open this up to our audience in the station and take some of the questions that have come in via social media. Our first question is from Beth Idala here in our studio.
This is Beth Idala, we're from Bethlehem. I'm reading Beth's question. Our son was threatened by another boy at his school. This kid said that if he was the type of kid that would shoot up a school, my son would be first and his friend would be second. This is a kid that stabbed my son in the stomach with a pencil and then again the next year in the back and the hand. We've gone to the school and to the police. I pretty much am left with either he's just talking tough or he's going to snap one day. I don't want my son's life to be the test. Why can't it be mandatory that if a student makes a threat of that gravity, he or she should be evaluated? I went through a lot to get my clearances. Why is this kid allowed to still attend school like nothing is wrong? I don't want anyone's thoughts and prayers. I want my son safe.
Deputy Chief, your response?
Yeah, you have a valid concern, and I understand what you're saying. I can't speak from the mental health aspect of it, of why he's not evaluated. I know within our schools, if an incident is brought to our officers, they follow the law. And they reach out to if the student's a juvenile, and they reach out to whether Northampton County juvenile or a Lehigh County juvenile, if there are any questions for guidance. So I understand what you're saying. I don't know how to address the mental health issue of that. I think that's a little beyond my reach, but I agree with you. That is a big problem today, and I think we need to get our mental health professionals more involved, because I believe that's what's at the heart of school violence.
Can I just add to that quickly?
Absolutely.
The other issue is, one of the issues I think law enforcement has is they often don't have the tools in a scenario like that, where a law hasn't been broken, somebody hasn't been involuntarily committed, and so giving them tools like legislation that's passed in a few states, extreme risk protection orders or gun violence restraining orders, where the police then are able to go in and remove weapons from the home in a scenario like that, when somebody is at risk or presents a risk without them having to be committed to a psychiatric facility. It's really critical, because one of the other really important statistics is 2/3 of school shooters obtain their weapons from their home or the home of a relative. And so it's imperative that people become more aware about safe storage requirements. Adults need to secure their weapons. If you own guns for protection or hunting or whatever, they should be locked up and secured in your home.
And we have a question here.
So Donald Trump says he's for teachers having guns in the school because he feels like they would be experienced and they would be trained. as like law enforcement, in your most honest opinion, do you feel like what are the qualifications for someone to own a firearm and be able to use it?
Well, there are no qualifications to own a firearm. You have to go through a background check. I know what we do with our department. Our officers train regularly in firearms multiple times a year. We train force-on-force training, which we use different types of what's called a simunition weapon, where it doesn't fire an actual bullet. So there's a lot of training that is involved with that. And I believe I touched on this earlier. The law is going to be whatever the law is going to be. Right now, Pennsylvania doesn't have that, and that's fine with me. Because like I said earlier, when we go into a situation and there's another weapon in there, that just diverts our mind to something else we have to worry about potentially.
And we now have a question from Esther Lee in the studio.
Good evening. My name is Esther Lee, and I'm president of the Bethlehem branch of the NAACP. My question this evening is, why is it believed that raising the age from 18 to 21 to purchase a gun or rifles will prevent future murders? And then, as a follow-up to the question I've heard here, and I too had that, why arm teachers to babysit, I call it babysitting, guns in the classroom? What do we hope that will solve? I do know that it's been discussed in Pennsylvania, and we don't subscribe to it.
Go ahead.
I'll take that.
Yeah. That might be better off for the legislators after us.
Right, who will be on next, and I think can speak effectively to that. To your first question, the raising the age, I support that. I think any measure that we can, put in place to reduce risk is helpful, but that's not the biggest source of gun homicides or violence. I mean, there are plenty of shooters and mass murderers that are over the age of 21, but there is a real argument to be made for, frontal lobe development and impulsivity. You can't buy a beer at 18, but you can buy a semi-automatic military-style assault weapon. So I think there's an argument to be made, but there's so many other more robust pieces of legislation that would really be impactful. Universal background checks, the bump stock ban, obviously, why that's even an issue for debate is hard to believe in my mind. But there are a lot of extremely important measures that would really make significant impact. In terms of arming the teachers, I think one of the, to your question about training, there are so many potential risks that introduces into a school. And there's really, our organization really strongly believes that solutions should be evidence-based. And there's just no evidence to support the fact, the notion that teachers with very little training, who that's not their profession, these police officers are training rigorously and routinely for this. And one study that was done in New York City Police Department said that the most highly trained officers in the middle of a gunfight successfully hit their target about 18% of the time. Because everything changes in a gunfight. It's not what you see on TV. It's not a Die Hard movie. It's just really not. And so this notion, but it makes a good soundbite, right? Let's arm the teachers, and they'll take care of it. You risk accidental discharge. The weapon being taken, out of the officers or the teacher's person, and then how do you store it safely? Because for it to be effective, you have to have immediate access, and you can't store it safely if it's.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you both for your time. When we return, we will be joined by some of our local politicians. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It really means a lot.
I'm Kira Murphy, and I'm a photographer. I learned how to take pictures when I was 5 years old. Here's my photograph. It's called Pegasus. It's special because the clouds look like wings behind the actual statue of the horse. When I take a lot of pictures, If one picture had one little detail, it may stand out from the rest. I'm inspired by my pop-pop. Every time we go to Florida, he usually wakes me up at sunrise and he takes me to beautiful places and we take photos together. The best part of being an artist is that you can let your imagination run wild. To be a great artist, you have to be patient because you have to wait for the right time to take a good picture. I'm Kira Murphy, and I'm amazed to be the PBS 39 Artist of the Month.
Welcome back to the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39. I'm Tracy Yatsko, and we'll continue our conversation with state representatives Gary Day, Maureen Madden, and Mike Schlossberg. Thank you for joining us. Before turning to our students, perhaps each of you could share what your approach is to school safety. Let's start with Representative Day.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank PBS 39 and also Kids Peace, which is in my district, for sponsoring this program and this outreach. You know, what my approach has always been, after Sandy Hook, I approached the Speaker of the House and I said, listen, let's be proactive, let's do something ahead of time before something happens in Pennsylvania again. You know, don't wait for something. Let's establish a select committee on school safety. The Speaker of the House said, yes, we'll do that. And then he appointed me the chair of that. And I got a chance to conduct those hearings. And I want to share some of the information we learned a couple of years ago in those hearings as we go through the program tonight.
Representative Madden.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the sponsors. Thank you for the students for taking part. I represent the 115th district, which is not far from here, East Stroudsburg South, Paige. And I have, I've co-sponsored over 20 pieces of legislation that would provide much needed gun reform, including closing gun show loopholes, which would allow the sale of handguns and long-arm guns. The latest piece of legislation of my colleagues that would end the sale of bump stocks. Personally, as a candidate and a legislator, I've never taken any money from any pro-gun lobbies. And while I would never ask you to be proud of an F, last time I checked, I had an F rating from the NRA, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Representative Schlossberg.
Well, two smaller points and then one big one. First, personally, I've always been a huge advocate for education and mental health. Those are the two issues that I talk about more than anything else. That means actually increasing funding to our local school districts so that we can actually give kids like these the opportunities that they deserve, regardless of whether or not they go to my very wealthy school district, Parkland, or my less wealthy school district in Allentown. Second, we do need meaningful gun reform. There's no question about it. Like Maureen, I suspect we've co-sponsored the exact same legislation. I joined Maureen in getting remedial grades from the NRA, and I'm proud of that. But I do want to make a broader point too, because I don't think it's brought up enough in the context of this school safety conversation. We have to have a conversation about the broader reasons for violence. Violence is a symptom of society's failure to do something, failure to invest in our kids, failure to take care of poverty, failure to take care of the poor, failure to create good jobs. School safety has become a problem because we haven't addressed the root causes, and that's why we're having these challenges today.
Thank you. Let's turn it over to our students. Georgia, I believe you have a question.
Any of you could really answer this, but if we arm teachers, isn't there the possibility that a student could get their hand on the gun and then it'd be much easier for a school shooting because the hands are on the gun already?
Yes. Yeah, and no, and there's a simple way to answer that, and that's yes, and that's one of the many reasons that arming teachers is an absolutely atrocious idea. Armed guards are one thing, because an armed guard's full-time responsibility is to actually manage safety. A teacher, my wife is a teacher, actually. She teaches 8th grade middle school at Harrison Morton in Allentown. And all right, we'll talk later. She came home today after helping to set up Deerhooves High School play, after working on her own play, and she was exhausted. I can't imagine her holding a weapon or anybody else given the other duties that teachers actually have. And I will also say that this whole debate about arming teachers is a distraction. It's a distraction from actually addressing the real issues of enacting real gun control.
Representative Day, do you agree? Do you disagree?
You know, I think it's important to know, like if you pick your wife or any particular teacher, my wife's a teacher as well, if you pick a particular person, you can't see that person doing that job. But if you let it open, I'm sure there's some people who could come forward and say, hey, I'm ready to take on this responsibility. And then the legislature could have policies in place that require a certain amount of training. But as was testified earlier today with other people talking about it, is being under fire, running with a handgun or any type of firearm into the face of battle with students in the hallway or not. Just running into the face of battle is quite a harrowing thing, even for our most highly trained people to do. So we would have to have the local school districts, our superintendents that were here, they would have to have policies that dictate exactly what we do. A teacher in a room with a firearm in a defensive position, if someone comes through the doorway, I would feel much more confident about that than running in to engage, as they're talking about with the one law enforcement officer in Florida. So I think that policies could be established where we would have enough training for the people who volunteered to do this type of work. And the president is out there talking about he believes we need to have a more hardened target. So I think it's worthwhile, but I do have to also report that during our hearings in the select committee, most professionals said that they did not want to arm teachers.
Okay. And Siobhan, you have a question?
How is arming a teacher effective in the school? While school is supposed to be a place where you go and receive an education, I think that what he said is correct, is a distraction that we're just talking about arming the teacher. We're introducing a new violence, not a new problem into the school, but also it kind of affects the officer's job to remove the problem at hand instead of getting distracted. How do you feel about that affecting the officers doing their jobs?
Well, most law enforcement officers don't want anyone to have weapons except for them, and that creates the most safest environment for them. So I understand that. I've learned about that from law enforcement officers throughout my career. I think, again, training, a strict policy for training would allow that. I could foresee the possibility. We need to open up our minds. We need to stop saying, I'm with the NRA, I'm against the NRA on everything. We need to open up our minds and say, have the NRA talk to us about gun safety and the policies. Have the ACLU talk to us about mental health and involuntary commit, and hold their both feet to the fire and let them work on the issue that they are so against, but let them help us come to the conclusions that we need to come to create a safe environment for our kids.
We're actually going to switch gears to a question on social media from Sharon from the Lehigh County. She asks, stricter gun laws, restricting access to social media, harsher punishment for bullies, banning graphic, violent video games or movies, lack or absence of God in our homes. What is the solution? Anyone care to?
Sure. So I've been talking to superintendents since the latest shooting and teachers. Matter of fact, I'll mention Mr. Healy, AP government class. I spoke to them last week and I asked the students, did they want Mr. Healy to have a gun? And it was a resounding no. I am the mother of 2 New York City police officers, and I know the amount of training that it takes for them to have a weapon and to be trained to shoot that weapon. So I think we are adding a problem if we arm teachers. What I heard overwhelmingly from principals and superintendents is, please give us the money that you want to use to put metal detectors in schools so that we can better equip our schools, whether it be, better security guards, all the doors locked, more intercom systems. And one superintendent said to me, give me a school psychiatrist, give me a guidance counselor with an open door policy. I'll just take one that can rove around my schools so that when a student is feeling pressured or depressed or they need to talk to somebody, they have an open door policy where they can go talk to a professional. The young man who shot at the Florida school had said, I'm depressed, my mother just died. He posted on social media, I'm going to be a school shooter. There were so many signs. Maybe we're not providing enough funds to have the people in place that we need so that they're reaching students before it gets to the point of running into a school with an automatic weapon.
Okay, and we do have some student questions. Go ahead, Edwin.
So for the Republican representative, speaking for the state Congress or for the National Party, why haven't they in the Congress been able to push through any significant legislation on gun reform, either by themselves or in cooperation with the Democrats?
So first of all, it's hard for me to speak for the national Republicans, but I'll do my best to try to just assess from my individual standpoint. I think it's part of what you're hearing from my colleagues here and from what I said as well. We're talking about all these other things that distract the issue. And then people want to jump into their foxholes, dig them a little deeper, and say, I'll be the one that stays here and I'll be the one that stays here. The president came out and he shocked Republican legislators at the federal level. And he made statements that no Republican president had ever said before. And the Democratic congressmen were saying, oh, and they jumped into their foxholes and said, well, he better not backtrack from that, rather than help him with that issue. So I look at, there's a couple things, and we've talked about them. What we do agree on is what we should work on. This young man in Florida was screaming for help. And he just went through this gap, and that gap, and that gap. Somebody called, he called into 911. He made himself apparent somewhere else. Someone else called in. They were screaming. We should be working together on the things that, when this is there, and you know, a therapist in the school, our superintendents, if you said that, that's where we should be working. We shouldn't, all these other things are someone trying to take I've got an easy solution, you know, and we really should be looking at what we agree on. Is this person, whether it was, you know, clinically mental health issue or just a mental way of thinking, that this guy was at the end of his rope and nobody stepped up and said, I'm going to take this kid, I'm going to talk to this kid, I'm going to try to rehabilitate this kid. I've talked to one of my school districts. They said we need a little more help on involuntary commit. When we see and identify a person like this, right now 72 hours involuntary, but they rather work with the parent and do a voluntary committal into a mental health facility, and then there should be protocols. You know, I always think about it all the time, and when I look at you, the one thing I'm worried about is if one of you would get caught up in that somehow from saying the wrong statement in school or something like that. But we need to be trained from your age up to our age that the signs are clear to me, and it's screaming to us that we need to have a mental health safety net. It might not be clinical mental health, but it might be when someone's screaming out like this, let's just not look the other way. And we need to fill those gaps that this young man fell through.
Let's actually take a question from our studio audience, Rebecca Fox.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Fox, and I'm from Wilson. And thank you guys for your dedication to our country. But I wanted to ask, what can we do now in the mental health crisis in Pennsylvania?
Thank you for asking that question. I'll say two things about that. First is that the mental health component of this conversation is an important one, but I don't want to completely get lost in it, because the people who are mentally ill, of which I am one, and I've spoken about this very loudly, my own challenges with depression and anxiety, people who suffer from mental illness are more likely to become the victim of a crime rather than the perpetrator of a crime. Now, obviously, there are extreme cases, and it seems like what happened in Florida might have been one of them. Part of the problem in Florida, and I think something that Representative Day talked about, was that this individual fell through so many gaps. Gaps exist because we in government, either at the local, state, or federal level, don't take care of the system. I would love to be able to put more school psychologists in the Allentown School District. We desperately need them. However, a few years ago, Allentown fired 400 teachers as a result of funding cuts. We don't have art, music, and gym completely in all of our schools. So the idea of funding a luxury like a psychiatrist is well beyond us. If we actually really and truly want to address this problem, we actually have to put our money where our mouth is, and it's as simple as that.
Okay. We're going to take another student question. Go ahead.
This question is for any of you. The narrative of tonight's conversation has been, oh, what can the principal do, or the teachers, or the guidance counselors? Thinking about the limitations of your job itself, what can you do to help the situation right now?
You're up.
Okay.
Representative Madden.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on what Representative Schlossberg said. We can fund education fully, and it's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is music programs and art programs that give students another outlet other than academics to express themselves and maybe find a new way to, you know, deal with mental health issues through art. I'm married to a musician, and he was a foster child in New York City as a kid, and to this day, and he makes a living playing music every day of his life, and to this day he says, my music teacher saved my life. I have 5 brothers and sisters. We were all separated. We all went through the foster care system, and I was the one who got a guitar put in my hand in junior high school, and I found that love. And that became his form of therapy, that music. So we have to fully fund all of the programs that, and look at students as a whole. What do they need? Do they need guidance counselors? I think at the point where we're talking about putting metal detectors in schools, we're already being reactionary. Being proactive is looking at all of you as whole individuals and what do you need to be successful, to be happy mentally, academically. And so funding education, and not just the basics, but funding all of education, like Mike said, the arts.
So I just wanted to address this issue as well. You know, when you look at, if the answer always is, let's throw more money at the problem, that's a fairly easy answer. We just raise the tax rates and put money toward this and keep everything the same. The 3 things that came out were organization. One of the things that I'm working on is I'm working with colleagues from both sides of the aisle. Sid Kavulich from up in the Northeast from the Democratic side, Craig Statz from down in the Southeast from the Republican side, and they helped me last year pass a law that would require school safety drills. Out of the recommendations report that we did from that committee, I went through the whole recommendations and I said, that should be the easiest one to do. We passed it out of the House, it went over to the Senate, and the Senate changed it from a shall provision, you must do it, to a may, you can do it if you want to. So it passed, it has to be on there, but that's you know, physically something to do. Not metal detectors, but maybe other technology. Choke points were talked about in the recommendations report. Mental health is the way I talk about it, not the clinical version, but and it could be the clinical version, but just understanding the mental side of where are these people? Are they isolated? Are they bullied? Sandy Hook Promise is an organization that's out there from after Sandy Hook. They have outstanding training that we could bring into our schools in Pennsylvania and teach about not leaving that last kid or the kids that were testified earlier behind. So it's the physical things, the mental health component, and also the organizations. What we can do at the state, and I have some bills prepared where we're going to have an organization that's responsible because these issues cross over 5 different committees. Okay, that's fine.
We're running out of time. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Please join me in thanking our awesome high school students, all of our panelists. I want to thank our studio audiences and offer a special thank you to our presenting partner, Kids Peace. I think you would agree that this conversation is not over. It will continue on the ride home, at the kitchen table, and tomorrow around the office. We at PBS 39 hope that by holding this gathering, we've helped each of you here and at home better understand the challenges and issues surrounding school safety. We know there's much work to be done, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. On behalf of everyone at PBS 39, thank you for joining us, and thank you for supporting your local public television station. I'm Tracy Yatzko, and good night from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.